Greetings, everybody. My name is Sanjiv and welcome to another edition of User Delight with Microsoft Technology. In this episode, we'll go over creation of a Power App from scratch and built on Microsoft SharePoint. Let's head on over to know more. Thank you very much. So let's begin the journey. So the first thing you do before starting your solution is literally to open up an Excel, right? A plain Excel. And then you note down all the items you want to capture. As an example here, since we are developing an expense management application, let us go ahead and capture items relevant to that. So as an example, expense type would be a field that you would want to capture, and this could be hotel, airfare, food and beverage, events, so on and so forth. The next one down would be expense category. So you would want to aggregate your expenses by category. As an example, airfare could be T&E, events could be SG&A, so on and so forth. So your management can roll those expenses up by category and then do reporting, analysis, and decision making, and so on and so forth, right? So that is on the consumption side. This is focused on the input side, right? So then I could actually go in and perhaps do the expense in a different country than where I live, and I'm in Singapore. So I could actually be in Malaysia or Australia, wherever. So I would need the country. Then you might want to aggregate the country by region. So as an example, Singapore and Indonesia could be south, Philippines could be, and Thailand relative to me could be north, so on and so forth. So then we have region. Obviously, you would have currency relative to each of the countries, or currency in general could be a separate table unto itself that you could actually transact in any country, right? Related to currencies, foreign exchange. So you would actually have Forex. And then you get into the line items that are directly sort of transactional in nature. So as an example, expense, date, then you would have the local amount that you would actually spend in the country. You would probably have some tax maybe that is related to that. Then you have an aggregation of this, which is the total amount. And then, since I'm based in Singapore, as a company, I do my filings to the SEC of Singapore, which is ACRA, right? So I'll convert this local amount into Singaporean dollars and call it ACRA amount. Okay, so this is the basic, Singaporean dollar amount, essentially, that I report to the regulatory body, right? So once I have this, then I get into who's making the request, who's actually approving the request, and then the status of the request, so on and so forth. So I'll basically call this requester and then approver. And then you have the status of the approval. And then you would have any comments that come out of this approval, right? I mean, the manager might want to, if the request is being, let us say, denied, they might want to add a couple comments to say why, this is being denied, right? And finally, you have the description, right? The description of the expense itself. I mean, the order here doesn't matter. When you actually do it in the app for the user, you would do whatever, right? So you can keep going. I mean, you can basically say, hey, look, I'm going to capture the expenses one by one, or I would actually book it all in one, so on and so forth. So those would be, a little bit more of a development on the basic app. Here, we're basically talking about just creating a simple app. And hence, we have got all these fields, right? So once you've got all these fields, you decide whether you need a control table or a master table to control some of these, fields. As an example, country is a field that your finance team would actually have as a statutory entity for your organization. You could have statutory bodies and entities in each of the countries. And so your country table is a control table that your finance team would control, and that would be a master or a control table, right? Likewise, expense type could be something that they control as well, right? What goes on as an expense is basically something that they control, right? So I would say, you would need a master table for expenses. Category kind of would be a qualifier in that master table as a separate column. So I would say yes here. Country, obviously. Region, yes. Currency, yes. And they would be different tables, right? So these two here would be one table, and these four here would be a separate table. Now, do you want to combine currency and forex into the same country table? Sure. But you could, in real terms, you would actually keep it separate, because within a particular country, you could transact in different currencies. You follow me? So then you have expense state. So no, this is not part of the master table. This is part of the transaction table. And so is local amount, so is tax. And tax is interesting. Tax potentially could be, could actually be a master table. So each of the jurisdictions would have its own tax, that you put in a control table. But in this case, I'm going to keep it simple. And then you have the total amount. Obviously, those are all transactions. Same to do with ACRA amount. The requester, when you log into M365, M365 kind of knows who the user is, right? So I'm going to actually say no. In addition, when you go into any database, basically it creates a record of who the person is who is actually, creating, an application, who the person is who is actually the creator of the application, who is the user who is logged into the application. So that would be the requester. So you could use a field called created by in SharePoint as an example. But then in this case, we're especially, particular going to, capture requester as a separate field. Now the approver could be a master table. That again goes to business security. Depending on the business units, you could actually have many different approvers. So that would be placed in a master table. But in this case, since we are doing a first principles application, we'll basically say no. In this case, we are going to be the approver. We are going to be the requester. Now, the status, I'll say no. This could be a choice column. You could basically say approved, rejected, pending, whatever, different statuses. Comments, obviously no, and description, no, right? So once I have this qualifier here for the master table, I'm going to basically look at data types, right? What are data types? As an example, the local amount here could be a decimal number, right? Could be a decimal, the expense date is date. This is a decimal. Then the tax is a decimal, total amount, ACRA amount, so on and so forth. Requester could be a text, a single line of text. Then the approver could be the same thing. The status could be the same thing. Your comments could be multiple lines of text, and so would the description, right? It's up to you. You can, keep it either a single line or a multiple line. You could, the only thing is if you were to keep the description as a single line of text, just make sure that you tell the user that, hey, look, don't go beyond, keep the description short and sweet. Don't enter a Bible here, okay? So that's that. Right, so carrying on to the other fields now. Now, the expense type is going to be, so you have your master tables, and then you're going to actually do your transactions record your transactions in the transaction table. So what we're going to do is, for things like the expense type and the country, which are basically primary keys, we're going to basically look that up into the transaction table. So the expense type is going to be a lookup field, lookup, if I can spell it right. And so will the expense category be a lookup, country is a lookup, region, currency, and forex, right? So from the master tables, the database, this is going to be a lookup at the database layer, and it looks it up and then it puts it in the transaction table. So that, and then the primary key is going to be the expense type as an example, and then the expense category is just going to be a fallout of that lookup, right? So if you were to look up the expense type as hotel into the transaction table, the expense category is automatically going to get populated as T&E. So that doesn't have to be another lookup from the master table. It's just going to be a fallout. Okay. So once you have this, then what you do is you go in and record the process flow. Okay, to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to draw. And so basically you have the requestor, oops, you have the requestor here, requester. And this is the start of the process. Then it goes to your first approver, right? And if the approver sends it back, goes back to the requester, so on and so forth, and then goes to approver 2, right? Approver 2, and then again goes back down to the requester if the second approver doesn't approve it, right? So have a process flow built in, right? And one of the most important things when you do this process flow is to keep things at a minimal level, right? Meaning that if you don't actually need a second or a third approver, please don't add them to the process flow. Otherwise, it's just going to make it more complex. I mean, people are just going to wait around for the approval if the approver is peripherally involved and not a must, right? So the person's going to sit on your approval. It's just going to delay things. So be thoughtful when you actually create this process, okay? So once you're done with this, you're actually now ready to start your application. So let's do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a browser. And in my browser, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to office.com, right? Office.com is a place that is central to all your applications within Microsoft 365. You have your Copilot here as well, which is a fantastic, fantastic tool, but that's a separate conversation. Now here, if I go to apps, I have bookmarked all of my applications. So I will start with SharePoint because I plan on capturing the information in SharePoint, right? So I'm going to go up to SharePoint, and here I'm going to go create a site, right? And in some cases, creation of the site may be a process inside of your organization. You might have to request your IT, go to a central site, make a request, and they'll actually give you, the site. In my case, I am able to create a site, right? It just depends on how your organization's managed. So I'm going to create a site here. I'm going to go create a team site using a standard template. And then I'm going to call this site Power Platform Videos, right? Power Platform Videos. And then I'm going to say next, make this a public site. And then I'm basically going to say this is standard data, not anything terribly confidential. And I'm not going to add any members here. I'm just going to create the site. So this goes away. It provisions all it applies the template, the configuration, so on and so forth. And that is that. So the site is now created. And then once the site is actually created, let me see if I can. No, this is published. Is there a place where I could page details? No, I think I'm going to leave it simple here. Okay, so I'm on my SharePoint site here, and let us begin the journey of creating those master tables, right? So I'm going to basically say new, and list is another name for a table, like a table in Excel. So I'm going to say new list, and I'm going to basically click on a list and call it master expense type, right? Master expense type. And then I want it to be shown in the navigation. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go create this, right? So there you go. The expense type is actually created with the title column. And in the title column, I'm going to basically go capture the expense type. Could we rename this to expense type? Absolutely. Is it necessary? No, because Power Apps, when you connect your site to Power Apps, it's not going to take the name, the rename. It's still going to keep it as the original SharePoint name as a title. So there's no point in doing that here. We might as well do it in our Power Apps, right? So this is where I'll capture the expense type. Then I go add a column, again a text column, and basically say this is a category. Okay, so I'm going to save this. So I've got my expense type, I've got my expense category. Okay, if I edit this in grid view, I can literally go add items here, right? So I'm going to say hotel, and this is going to be T&E. Then I'm going to say airfare, and that's also going to be T&E. Then events, and these are going to be SG&A, sales and general administration. Then I'm going to basically say food and beverage, and that is going to be T&E, and so on and so forth, right? Now, I populated this from SharePoint. If you have an Excel that already has the data, you could upload that to SharePoint. You just export it from your Excel. Or if you have an app that is actually built on this, and the app should only be accessible by the person who owns this data, as an example, the finance people, you could do that as well. I mean, that is the more sort of preferred approach, okay? So as you can see, there is a list here now in SharePoint. So I'm going to click on Home here. I'm going to go to New List again. And now I'm going to go ahead and then create a master country list, right? This is going to be master country. Go create this. And then here, I'm going to edit this in grid view as well. So this is going to be Singapore. And this is going to be, I'm going to add a column. Well, I should add, the other columns here. So I'm going to basically say region and then save this. Then I'm going to actually add text again. This is going to be currency. And once again, currency could be its own separate master table. In this case, I'm just keeping it simple. And I'm going to add a number column, say next. And this is going to be Forex. And I'm going to make it 2 decimal points. Okay. And save this, right? So now I can edit this in grid view. So Singapore is south. Currency is SGD. The Forex is 1 because that is the main currency. Then I have Indonesia. This is south. Then the currency is IDR. And then the Forex here is 10,000, I believe, right? 10,000 Indonesian rupiah to 1 Singaporean dollar. And then we have Malaysia, and that is center. And then that is MYR is the currency here, and 3.23, right? Then we have Thailand. This is north. And then the currency here is THB. And then the Forex here is, what is the Forex here? The Forex here is 23.32, something thereabouts, And then we have Philippines. So the Philippines is north as well. And then PHP is the currency. And then the Forex here is, I believe, 42.32. Okay. So we've got the Forex here. So now we are done with the country table and the expense table. Once we have these two tables, let us go ahead and build a transaction table, right? So I'm going to say new list, and then again, I'm going to go to a transaction expense. So go create this, and then this goes away. And now I'm going to capture the expense description here in the title field, but the rest of it I'm going to add here. So I'm going to say add column, and this time it's going to be a lookup column, right? And I'm going to look up to I'm going to call this country, and I'm going to go ahead and look up the master country here, right? The title column is going to be the primary key, the main lookup. And if I go to more options, I've got the region, currency, and Forex, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So now I have the country as a lookup, the region, currency, and Forex. I don't like the prefix here. So I'm going to just go edit this and basically say, don't add the prefix, just the region. And then do the same thing for the currency, right? save, and then the same thing for Forex. I'm going to basically go remove the Forex here, and like so. So I've got the country, region, currency, and Forex. Now I'm going to do the other lookups. So I'm going to say, lookup again, and next, and I'm going to go call this expense type. And I'm going to go here to the lookup, and this is going to be the master expense type. And I'm going to say more options, and I need the category. I've got the title here already as a primary key, so I don't need to click this additionally. So I'm going to save this. So then likewise, go here, column settings, edit this, and I'm going to remove the expense type, keep only the category, and there you go, right? So you can also resize these so that you don't have to scroll. So now if I go back to my Excel, I've got all these done, right? I've got all these done, so I'm going to mark them here. Okay, so now I need the expense date and all the rest of it, right? So I'm going to say add date and time. Next, I'm going to call this the date. And then I'm not going to include time here, so I'm going to save this, right? So that's the date column. Then I'm going to add the local amount, so there's going to be a number as well. So I'm going to basically say local amount, and this is going to be a 2 decimal point. Save this. So the local amount is there. Scroll to the right. Go add a number column again. Next, I'm going to call this tax. And this is going to be a 2 decimal point to save that. Then I'm going to go here and then say total amount. So that's going to be a number as well. So this is going to be a total amount. And then I'm going to make this a 2 decimal point as well. Save it. And then I have the number column again. Go ACRA, go up here, ACRA amount. And this is going to also be a 2 decimal point. Save that, right? So then I've got all my amounts done here, right? So I've got expense date and all the amounts. Then I'm going to go add the requester, approver, status, and comments. So, and the description is already done, so I'm going to mark that as well. So I just got 4 more: requester, approver, status, and comments, right? So if I go up here, I'm going to say text. I'm going to say this is the requestor. Do I really need to create this? May not be, because I've already got the as the metadata of this table, I've already got created and created by. So I could use the created by field. Okay. So then I go text again, and I'm going to basically say approver. Once again, this could be a master table depending on which business unit the approver is from, right? And then I'm going to go multiple lines of text, and then I'm going to go add comments here, and then this is going to be multiple lines. Save this, and I'm done, right? So, the descriptions here, and the expense category and type, country, region, and Forex and currency, expense date, the amounts, requester, approver, and status, and then I've got my comments. The description is in the title field. Okay, so now I'm done. So once I'm done with this, I'm ready now to actually go over to my app to begin the journey. So I'm going to go over to myoffice.com. I'm going to go to my apps. I'm going to go to Power Apps here. And then once I go to Power Apps here, the very first thing that I do, and depending on your organization, you could have multiple accounts, right? So I'm going to make sure I'm actually logged in with the right account, and I'll make sure I'm in the right environment here, right? Environments basically are containers for your solutions. So it is actually great to have the right environment for you, dedicated for you and on your team. You could talk to IT about creating those environments, because you won't be able to, right? Once you're in the right environment, on the left-hand side, if you go to create, this is where you can actually start your application. But if you want to contain the entire application, the data sources, the associated automation, etc., in a container, I would recommend you kind of put them in a solution, right? So you go in, you click on your solution, and then you click on new solution, right? So I'm going to call this, let us call this cost management solution, or cost management solution, right? Or cost tracker solution, whatever. So I'm going to just call it cost tracker, since there was a cost tracker solution. Now the publisher here is basically a prefix that your tables actually get if you're using what is called as Dataverse, which is essentially a database management system within your Power Apps. But we're not going to use this, so I'm just going to use something, a default solution, and I'm going to default publisher, and I'm going to go create this, right? So the whole idea of a solution is that it's a container for your app, for your tables, for your Power Automate flows. So everything stays in one place. So when you export a solution, the entire package with its schema, gets exported, and then you can re-import it to any other environment, especially if you're doing dev, test, and production. Okay, super. So here's a solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to apps here. As you can see, there is no app. I'm going to go to new app, and I'm going to go to Canvas app, right? So I'm going to click on a Canvas app here. I'm going to call this cost tracker portal, cost tracker portal. And this is going to be in a tablet format because nowadays, our phones are like mini PCs. So you can put the form on the one side, you can put a table on the other side, so you can see what you've actually entered in one place if the app is simple enough, right? So I'm going to go create this, and this goes away and brings you to the Power Apps Studio. So it says, welcome to the studio. I'm going to just skip right through this. On the left-hand side, you have the tree view, and the tree view basically has all controls. As an example, the screen here, which basically anchors you much like the roots anchor you to the ground. You have the screen that anchors you to the application. Then you have the forms, the galleries, and then the tables that are much like the stem of the tree, then the drop downs and so on, you can think of as branches, and the data itself as leaves, and so on and so forth. Then the plus sign here, you can add controls, but you've got controls here under insert as well. The grid here is adding data, but you've got add data here as well. So that's that. And then this spider looking thing is basically where you have variables, whether you have like, tables as variables as collections, or you have like global variables within your application that you can access anywhere inside your application. All of it remains here, right? And you conveniently have a search bar to search for anything inside your application, right? The very first thing you do is to rename your control. So I come up here and I call it SCN, and I'm going to call it login. So this is going to be the login screen. There's also another control here called app, and this comes in very handy to centralize your formulas or centralize your variables. As an example, I could go to formulas over here and then basically go define my formulas. So there's a separate video on how to do formulas. I'm gonna, give you a link to that when I post this video. And you have your functions called user. So I'm going to call the user function here. I'm going to call this, first of all, I'm going to name the variable. I'm going to call it var. Var is a short form for variable, much like SCN is a short form for screen. I'm going to say var user email. And I'm going to basically say user. So you have the user function here, close the bracket, user.email. And if you use a semicolon, you can add multiple functions. So I'm going to go to var user image and basically say user dot image, right? Now, I can also define my app colors here. As an example, let us say I want the header to be Prussian blue, right? So I can literally go up to my Copilot here and then say, give me the hex number for Prussian blue and gold, right? If I do this, this goes away and gives me Prussian blue as this and gold as that. So have this. So I'm going to go ahead and add var Prudentia blue, and Prudentia has that defined color. And then that's my company. And then I'm basically going to go say color value is a function. And in this, it's basically asking me for the text. And any text in any programming language has to be in double quotes. So I'm going to actually open up my double quotes here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this hex number for Prussian blue. And like so. And I'm going to close the bracket. So I have defined my variable that captures my blue color, right? Then I hit enter and say var Prudentia gold. and then say equal to color value, color value, and then this is going to be the gold color here, like so, right? This is going to be the gold color, like so, and I'm going to actually do that, and that's that, right? So I have my gold color, I have my blue color. I'm also going to say maybe also medium tone gray, right? So this is going to go give me a gray color. So I'm going to go basically copy this over like so, and then define Prudentia gray here. Why I want a footer with that color, right? Okay, and then go to the studio, and then the gray here is that, right? So I'm gonna put this down here like so. So I've got my colors now, right? These are all basically centrally defined. Now, the thing about these named formulas is that these don't change throughout the application. If you want something to change through the application, you go to the start screen on start property here, and then you set the value of that variable here, right? So as an example, I can basically go say set var db. What is db? Database. Set var db to be 0 here. What does this actually do? It sets a variable called var database, var db to be 0, and later on you'll see that if it is 0, then I'll make the database show me everything, right? I won't filter it, show me all the values, right? So this one I can set it to 1 or 2 later, once I set it to 0 upon start, right? This can change, whereas named formulas cannot change. They have to be what it is through the whole app, okay? So I'm ready now to begin. So I'm going to go add my first control. I'm going to add a text label here. First thing I do is I say label header underscore SL. What is SL? Screen login. So I have the header label, and SL is the postfix. I'm going to basically go up here. I'm going to make this 1366 pixels by 100 in height. And then I'm going to make this about 25 units. And then I'm going to centralize this like so. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and I'm going to actually go to the fill property, right? And then here I'm going to remove the RGB and go to var Prudentia blue. There you go. So that's my blue color there, right? And now the color property over here, I want it to be white. So I'm going to just say color dot white, right? So this is going to be white color. And here I'm going to basically say welcome to the cost management portal. There you go. So I'm done, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go insert an image here. I'm going to say image like so, and then put the image on the right hand side. Rename this as IMG user underscore SL. So this is going to be the user image, right? So all I need to do here is remove the sample image in the image property here and go var user image. And there you go, I get my image, right? Then I'm going to use another image. So I'm going to go to image again, and then go to image, put it down like so. And this one, I'm going to rename it as IMG logo underscore SL. So this is where I'm actually going to capture the company logo. So here I'm going to go say upload, and then I'm going to go over to my where my image is. I'm going to basically say Prudentia, and then I have my Prudential logo. Let me see, in white. So I select that, open this, and there is my logo. I'm going to make this a little bigger like so, maybe add a little bit of space, and voila, I have my image here, right? So I've got my logo here, I've got my image here, so I'm now ready to keep going, right? What I'm then going to do is I'm going to go copy this guy, Control C, Control V. I'm going to bring this down like so, and I'm going to actually make this into a footer, right? So in the footer here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, well, first of all, I'm going to remove this text, right? And then I'm going to go over to the color here, or the fill. Where's my fill? Right? I'm going to call this var prudentia gray. So this is going to be the gray color. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to make the text about 17. And then I'm going to actually go over to the height here, make it about 45 units, a little smaller. And then in the text property here, I'm going to basically go, where is my text? Text. I mean, the text property here, I'm going to basically say var user email. So my user email comes in, right? In addition, I want the date and time, right? To get the date and time, I can use a function called now. The issue with the now function is that it doesn't update. So I need it to update, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a timer here. So I'm going to go insert a timer, move the timer down below, and I'm going to call it TMR_SL. And then the duration of the timer, I'm going to make it 1000 because every second is 1000. I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to auto start this. Okay. Then I'm going to go to the on timer end here, and I'm going to basically set var timer TMR as equal to the now function. So what does this do? Basically, when the timer ends, which is after every second, it sets the var timer to be equal to the now, which is your current date and time. Because it is on a repeat and it auto starts, it basically starts on its own. At the end of every second, it's going to basically set the var timer to be equal to now. Okay. So I've got this done. So I'm going to go back to my footer and I'm going to basically concatenate the timer. So comma, like so, and var timer, right? Var TMR. Okay. So lo and behold, I have this done. If I preview this application right now, so I can actually see my timer. So I have my email address and I have the date and time. And if you wait, as you can see, it is actually counting down. Every second it's getting repeated. And at the end of every second, the var timer is getting updated with the now function, which gives you the current date and time, right? So if we wait for a little bit, maybe a few more seconds, this should go to 10:46 in the morning, right? And you kind of, yeah, there you go. It went to 10:46. So you're basically cheating a little bit, right? Then I'm going to go to the timer. I don't want the users to actually see this. I'm going to basically hide this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this header over a little bit just to make it a little bit more elegant. I'm going to actually remove this here. I'm going to make this 4 units in height. And then I'm going to go ahead and then put this at 104, something like that. Or maybe even 103, 104, I think is good enough. It just adds a little accent to our app. I'm going to call this top divider, okay? Then I'm going to take the same thing, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to actually place this down below like so. I'm going to call this bottom divider, okay? So basically, I'm actually done right now with my header and footer, and I can use this as a template, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the screen a couple times. So once, and then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it a second time, right? I'll tell you why shortly. So in the login screen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert another image, right? Let me go to insert image, like so. Go up here and then add that image, make it a little bigger, like so. Okay. And then I could go to stock images. Let us see if there is anything that talks about cost here, expense. Okay, expense. Okay, great. So I'm going to get this image, insert this image over here. So this is going to be my, image for the app, right? And then I can add a couple buttons for them to navigate over to other screens. So as an example, I'm going to basically call this screen dashboard. And then I'm going to go over to the next one. I'm going to rename this as screen data entry. Okay. So this image here is going to be IMG background background underscore SL. If you want to, you can make it, you can fill it like so, completely up to you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go insert a button, right? I'm going to insert a button here, pull this button down like so, make it a little bigger, right? Make it a little bigger. If you want to, you can you can set the color. So the fill property, you can set it basically to var var Prudential blue as well, right? Or var Prudential gold if you'd like, right? Gold, like so, right? And then you can basically go in and set the text here. Where is the color? The text here to var Prudential blue, okay? Like so. And then you call this view enter information, right? This is going to be enter information. If you want to, you can make it semi-bold, whether it already is semi-bold, okay? Let me see here, 15 semi-bold. If you want to, you can make it bold, right? Up to you. So this is going to be a button to btn new underscore SL. So this is going to be new information. And then Control C, Control V, you put the second one down here. And this is going to be the button to, okay? This is going to be where you view the dashboard, view dashboard, okay? So here, when you enter information, you know, you're going to go over to the form and enter new information. For this one, you're basically going to view the dashboard, right? So I'm going to now go over to the data entry screen. So I'm going to call this data entry, rename everything here to SE, data entry. And it's always best practice to rename things as you do it. Otherwise, there's a good chance you may actually forget everything, okay? All right, so once you have this, what you do now is you go in and add a form. So you go to Insert, you go to Edit Form, like so, right? You go to an edit form, you make it bigger like so. Okay, so there's your form. Rename this form as form underscore SE. And then this is where we're going to bring our data from the transaction table, right? But before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my transaction table, go to all items here, and add and remove fields. And basically, you can see there are other fields like ID, so on and so forth, modified and created and all that. I'm going to basically just apply this because I don't want to see the additional fields over here. You follow me? I don't want to see the additional fields. I'm going to just say, you know, give me only that I need. And then I'm going to go back to my app and I'm going to go to add data. I'm going to basically say SharePoint. So be careful here. There are multiple SharePoints. Select the true SharePoint site with an S in it. It's a little bit of a teal kind of a color, not the real green. So I'm going to select that, select my account. And here it asks me for my URL, right? So I'm going to go over to my site URL. And the site URL is basically from videos all the way down to the H, from Power Platform videos all the way down to the H. So kindly select that, go over, paste it here, and connect to it. When you connect to it, you see a master and transaction, master tables and transaction table. Kindly, you know, connect to it. And now if I were to go to data, you will actually see that those are, you know, connected to the application. As simple as that, right? And then if I go to the right-hand side, it shows me my tables as well. And if you add new things, you can always go in and refresh this, okay? So once I have my form here, I'm going to go to the right table. First of all, I'm going to actually say, give me 2 columns and, you know, make this a new form as an example, okay? And I'm going to basically select the transaction expense, and it goes away and pulls all the fields into my application. I'm going to say replace data cards, go ahead, and lo and behold, everything comes in, right? I'm going to now edit this here. I want my expense type to the first one, right? First column. And if I don't see my category here, so I can actually go add it. So I want my category, I want the comments. What else do I want, right? I want the currency, I want the Forex, right? And what else? Do I want anything else? Region here as well. And that's about it. So I'm going to add all these in. So I'm going to minimize these so I can see everything. Region and so on. Okay. So here's my expense type. There is my category, right? Expense type category. Then I need my expense description. And then I would need the expense date. Do I have the date here? Expense date, yes. I need the date. Then I need the country in which I make the expense. Then I need the region. I'm going to leave it like, below. Then the currency I need. Where's my currency? I'm going to bring the currency up. I'm going to bring the currency up. Then I need the foreign exchange. I'm going to bring the foreign exchange up. Then I bring the local amount, the tax, the total amount, the ACRA amount. I have the requester and the approver. The comments, I'll leave the comments here. I'll talk about it later. And then I have the region here at the very end. I don't necessarily need the region, but if you want to, you can move it below the country, right? Like so, okay? So I've got all my fields here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go basically to the, the color. So I'm going to go to the fill property. I'm going to basically use a property called color fade, and then I'm going to take the var Prudentia blue and fade it by 85%. Okay. So I see a nice little blue color here. So that is my background, right? So once I have this, and if you want, you can even add a background here, like a background gray or something like that, completely up to you. I'm going to just leave it like, white, right? So if I preview this and go to expense type, it shows me my expense type now because it's a lookup. If I go to country, it shows me my country because it's a lookup, right? The only issue is if I were to select airfare, it does not show me the category. And if I were to select the country here as Indonesia, it does not show me the region and currency and Forex. The reason is I haven't submitted data to the database. It's only when I submit it to the database will the actual numbers get picked up. And yet I need to be able to show the users what the category is or what the region is or so on and so forth. So basically to do that, what I'm going to go to do is I'm going to open up this data card. I'm going to go up to my category here. Let me just see expense type and category, unlock this. And then I'm going to go basically insert a text label like so. And then put the text label literally on top of the data card value. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this, text, and I'm going to basically do a lookup. I'm going to say lookup what? The master country table. And then I'm going to basically say the title, which is the country, is equal to whatever is selected in the expense type. So I go to expense type. This is data card value 8. I'm going to say data card value 8. Dot selected, dot give me the value. So now I'm doing in Excel, you have a VLOOKUP. So I'm essentially doing a VLOOKUP over here. And I'm going to basically say, give me the category now, right? Give me the category. I believe it is called the category, right? Category. Master country. Not the master country. This is going to be the master expense type, sorry. Right? And then I'm going to call category, okay? And close this. So now you can see the T&E comes out, right? The idea here is when I make a new form, when I enter new information, this should basically show me the user, the category by looking up. Once I'm done with this, when I go hit edit, when I go submit and the data goes into the database, now the database is going to do the lookup and is going to add the category in the database. You follow me? This is basically just a view to the user when they're entering new information when there is nothing in the database. Once I actually submit it to the database, now the database does the lookup, and versus airfare, it's going to show TNE in the database, which means now that the category here in the data card value will pick up the value of TNE in the database. And when you go back again to the app to edit this information, it will show TNE. So your label here is going to be kind of a redundant thing. So we need to swap the visibility of this label. It should be visible when the form is new, but it should not be visible when you edit the form. Okay, so let us do that. A lot of words, let's actually do this. I'm going to call it LBL category underscore SL. What is it? This is SE, sorry, SE, okay? And what I'm going to basically do is, at the very beginning on the login form here, I'm going to go to the onSelect property here. I'm going to go set var, a variable called var visibility, var vis to be equal to 0. So when the information is new, you basically set this to 0. I'll tell you why shortly. And then I navigate over to SEN data entry, okay? So if I go back to my form and if I go to this label here, the visibility, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the visibility property here. I'm going to basically say var vis, if the var vis is equal to 1 or var vis is equal to 0, only then show this, otherwise don't show it, right? So as an example, I'm not able to see it now, but if I were to go to screen login and then if I preview this app and if I say enter information, then you see the TNE because now the label becomes visible, okay? So I'll do the same exact thing for the others, for region, currency, and Forex. So I'm going to copy this label here, Control C, and then I'm going to go over to region first, which is down here, unlock this, open this, paste it, and then rename this as region. And then I'm going to change the formula here to master country. And then this is going to be equal to, which is the data card for my country. I'm going to go open the country data card, which is data card value 7. And then I want the region. Okay, I want the region. There you go. So that's the region, right? And I'm going to actually pull this up like so. So that is done. Maybe like so. Okay, so region is done. So copy this, Control C. I'm going to go over to currency, unlock this, open this, Control V. So there you go, region. And then I'm going to call this currency, right? So currency and close that. And then go to Forex, go unlock this, and then copy Forex over here. So we'll call this okay, and then I'm going to call this Forex over here. Okay, so now you have your region, you have your, oh, I need to call this currency, right? Need to change it to currency. And then I've got my Forex. You follow me? So if I were to preview this and if I were to go to food and beverage, it shows me whatever it is, events maybe, SGNA. If I were to change it to Malaysia, center, currency, and Forex, right? So I have my lookups done. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go over to my total amount, which should be a summation of the local amount and tax, right? So I'm going to actually close all this here. I'm going to open up my local amount and I'm going to open up my tax, right? Unlock my total amount, go to data card value, and then I'm going to basically, so all these, you know, the local amount and tax in the form is a text. I need to convert it to a value. So I'm going to say value, open up. I'm going to say data card value 10 dot text plus value of data card value 11 dot text. Okay, so this is going to be a sum of the local amount and the tax. You follow me? So if I were to play this and enter a local amount of 1000 and let us say the tax is 10%, then the total amount is 1010, right? And this tax could be a master table, so you could it based on the country you select, the tax could be automatic. Okay, so just the same way you have the forex, the tax could also be a lookup, right, if you wanted to. Okay, so you have the total amount. So now what you do is basically you take the total amount, you divide it by the forex, and you should be able to divide it by the forex, and you should be able to get the ACRA amount. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go open up the ACRA amount, and then I'm going to unlock this, and I'm going to basically say if error, then value of the local amount data card, which is data card value 12, I believe, total amount, data card value 12 dot text, and then divided by LBL forex dot text. Okay, and I need to add a value in front of this too because that is a text field. Okay, and the if error basically says, hey, if this calculation is an error, just show me a 0. In the odd chance that I don't select the country, the forex is going to be blank, and if you divide anything by blank, it's going to blow up. So you basically in those cases show it as 0, right? And then the ACRA amount here, you can basically also format this. You can basically say text, and then format it as a, hash dot 00, like so. Okay, so 2 decimal points, right? So that's done. Then what you do is you minimize these here. You minimize these. The requester and the approver are going to be one and the same. So it's going to be me, the requester, me, the approver in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the requester, unlock this, go to data card value here, and replace this with var user email. And then do the same thing for the approver, unlock this, go up to the data card value, remove this, and go var user email. Okay, so that is done. The comments I will actually, if I go to the comments here, I'm going to basically hide the comments. I'm going to go make it visible only when the var visibility is, in fact, actually, I don't need to have the comments here at all, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, because the comment should be visible in the dashboard, not in the app, right? Not in the form. So I'm going to basically go to the form here, and I'm going to remove the comments from this, literally remove it. Okay. And then if I preview this, everything looks good, except that the ACRA amount, the requester and approver should basically be, or even the total amount, ACRA amount, requester and approver should be view only. People should not be able to edit this. Right now they can, you see. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to actually grab hold of requester. I'm going to basically make it, go to display mode here, display mode, and make it view only. Okay. I'm going to go to approver, go to display mode, and make it view only. Okay. I'm going to go to, which one here is it? Total amount, go to display mode dot view, and then the ACRA amount, I'm going to go make it dot view. Okay, so wonderful. So basically I have everything I need here. The title here, I can change this to description. So I'm going to go to the title data card, unlock it, go to data card key, which is basically the title. It is displaying the parent display name, right? The parent SharePoint, the column, the display name is title. So I'm going to basically change this to description. like so. Okay, change to description. And all of this, if you want to, you can make it semi-bold, right? So go over to each one, data card key, make it semi-bold. It just looks a little elegant, Okay, expense type, data card key, semi-bold. Okay, already started looking nice, right? Date, key, semi-bold. Okay, local amount, key, semi-bold, one by one, right? This is doing it for your team, a departmental app, sometimes even an enterprise level app. You don't need to get terribly fancy over here. Nobody actually gives you any points. This is not a consumer app for you to make it fancy. This is in the enterprise. So you can keep it relatively straightforward and simple and should be good enough, okay? So semi-bold here, and then currency, semi-bold, right? And you go to Forex, and then you go to region, data card key, and semi-bold, right? So if I were to play this here, everything looks rather elegant. So you could even make, some of these, so as an example, for any of these expense type, let me just go here. What I'm trying to say is if I go to the data card value here, you can make the border here 1, and if your border color, if you were to go to the border color here, you can kind of make it a little, I'm going to unlock this first. And then the border color here, make it something lighter, VAR, Prudentia, gray as an example, right? So starts looking very neat, right? That's the point, right? Each one. So you could do the same thing. So I'm going to actually go to each one. So what else do we need? The description, right? So the description, go to data card value, go to border color, remove this guy, VAR, Prudentia, gray, and go to the right hand side, go to the border, just make it 1, right? Starts looking a little neat. Do the same thing on the date here, right? These are all finer things that you could actually do to sort of make it look a little nice, right? And I need to unlock this. Okay, VAR, Prudentia, gray, and then make it 1 like so. So same thing with the country right now. Where is my country? Country should be right there. Unlock it, go down, data card value, go to border color, right? Remove this guy, VAR, Prudentia, gray, right? Make it, 1 here, right? And begins to, so now if I play this, it begins to start looking pretty neat, right? And that's the whole point. You want some level of neatness in this. You don't want it to be too shabby, right? So we go to local amount here. Where is local amount? Same thing, unlock it, go up, data card value, right? Go to the border color, remove this, and then VAR, Prudentia, gray, and then you make it 1 unit, and then you go to tax, unlock it, go up, select the data card value, go to the border color, remove this, VAR, Prudentia, gray, then go up here, make it 1 unit, and you're basically good to go, right? The other thing is, if I were to go to, let us say, the local amount, right? If I go to the local amount here, where is the local amount? If I go to the local amount, there is what is called as an error message here, right? So I'm going to make this whole card a little bigger. I'll show you what I'm going to do with this. So I'm going to make it, height of 125, let us say. And then I go to the error message here, make this a little bigger, right? Make that maybe 25 units. The whole idea here is it says parent.error. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to basically say if the data card value 10, data card value 10, data card value, data card value 10, which is the data card for the local amount, dot text is blank. If this is blank, right? If this data card value is blank, right, then you basically show a message saying, this field is required. UUIRED. This field is required, right? So basically, if I go in and if I remove the local amount here, this goes away. It tells the user, hey, look, this is required. You need to actually enter this, right? So once I enter it, it basically goes away. Yeah. So, these are all final things that you need to kind of take care of, right? So then what do? I basically need a button to submit this to the database, right? So I'm going to go to my app here, the login screen, copy this guy, Control C, and then I'm going to go to the data entry screen here and paste this like so over here in the center. And this is submit information, right? Submit information. And then when you submit this, what we're going to do is we're going to go to submit, right? We'll say submit form. What's the name of the form? Form underscore SE, semicolon, reset form, right? Reset form, form underscore SE, and then navigate over to, the screen dashboard, right? You navigate over the dashboard because dashboard, so you'll be able to see your entry, right? The only other thing I need to do here is in the status, if I were to go to the status, where is my status? Form, I don't have the status here. So I'm going to actually add status. Let me go to the dashboard. Did I create the status? Country, expense type, date, total amount, approver. See, didn't add the status. So I'm going to add a text here. Next, I'm going to call this status and single line of text, save this. So go back here, go to the data source, refresh this, and refresh it once more. And then, because I'm paranoid, save this and publish it. Okay, so it takes about a minute or so the first time to actually save this. It is saving it to the cloud, to Power Platform. And there you go. And then publish this guy. Publishing it creates a version, right? So what I'm going to now do is just refresh this whole thing, reload this so that the change that I made on the status is actually visible. Okay, so where you go, so this goes away and I'm going to basically say skip. And then if I were to play this and go to enter information, here we are, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to, I need to rename these buttons, by the way. So I'm going to open up the form, and in the form, go up here and add status, right? Search for status. There it is. Add. And then once the status actually comes in, I'm going to go down here, and in the status, I'm going to unlock this, and I'm going to basically go say here in the status, this should be the text property of this data card value, right? and then it says parent.default, right? So when the form is a new form, the status should be submitted, right? When it basically is under edit, it should inherit whatever is in the database, the existing status, right? So let's do that, for which I would use a switch statement. I'll say switch. What am I going to switch? Var viz, right? I'm going to switch var viz, and then I'm going to basically say, if it is 0, it is actually submitted. And if it is 1, then show me whatever is in the database, right? So I'd have to do this in a second. So I'm gonna leave this like so for now. I'm gonna add submitted here for now, right? I'll come back to this, okay? So I'm gonna basically say submitted over here. So that is gonna be the default status of this. And here I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to basically make it not visible. I'm going to basically say false, okay? So now I'm actually ready to submit this to the database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, I'm done with my data entry. Just make sure in screen data entry, rename this as button submit underscore SE. Make sure all of my buttons are, all my controls are okay, they are. Then close this, go over to the screen dashboard, and then rename everything to SD. All this really matters because you want to make sure that your form is, that your app is proper, okay? And if you were to hand this off to someone else, you're just being kind to people to make sure they're not lost, okay? Wonderful. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert a data table. I'm going to go to data table like so, make it bigger like so over here, okay? Like that, right? And I'm going to rename this as data table underscore SD as well, okay? And then on the right-hand side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go connect this to my transaction expense table, right? So this goes away and brings everything into my, right? It brings everything in. Now I'm going to go to title here, and then in the header text, I'm going to call this description so that people understand what this is. And then I'm going to go ahead and then orient this properly. So the first one is going to be the status, right? Then I'm going to basically add the comments from the, so I'm going to go, I need the ACRA amount. I need the, do I need the category? Yes, comments. And then what else do I need? That's all I need, okay? So I'm going to basically go up here, bring the comments after the status. Then I'm going to basically go select the expense type here, expense type. Maybe a description of the expense, the date, the ACRA amount, bring in the local amount as well, and then the date here, right? And then the requestor, of course, we know who the requestor is, total amount, then local amount, total amount, tax, the currency, and the category. If you want to, you can move the category up if you want to. So I'm going to just leave it here. Sometimes you're not able to move this, so you want to close it and come back in. So I'm just going to put the category here, okay? So I've got everything I need. And if I go to the local amount, if I go to the expense type column here, it is showing me the expense type value. Now in your data table, if you want to, you can go to the header fill, and then instead of the regular fill, you can say var Prudentia blue if you want, right? Like so. And so we are now ready to go. I'm also going to insert a home icon here, home icon. So put the home icon right there. So I'm going to go to make this smaller, make it 50 by 50, not 500, 50, right? And then make that 5, 5, 5, and 5. then make this white in color like so, okay? Put this somewhere in the center like so. And then when you select this, on select, I'm gonna basically go navigate over to where? Screen login, right? I'm gonna log in over to the screen there. And I will, this is good enough for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to screen data entry. I'm going to enter something in right now, okay? So I'm going to basically select a country. Well, I'm going to select an expense here, description. Let us say this trip to KL, right? Kuala Lumpur, and it is on 27th, right? And then the local amount, or this is to, let us say, Malaysia. And then the local amount here was 500 ringgit, and there's a tax of like 10, so 154 bucks, which is okay for a round trip. And I have everything I need here. I'm going to basically go submit this information. So my new information is actually created here. Obviously, there are no comments because it's been submitted to the requester, right? To the approver, right? So from here, I'm also going to add insert a right. If I say icons, let me see. Yeah, insert this back arrow here, so to the right-hand side, like so. And I'm gonna make this rotation of 180, okay? And then 50 by 50 by 5 by 5 by 5 by 5. I'm gonna make this white in color, like so. Okay, I'm gonna make this white in color. And what I'm going to do is, when I do this, I'm going to be able to navigate over to where? To SCN data entry, right? I should be able to go bidirectionally from here to the other screen. So I'm going to add that. And all the placements of this, etc., you can actually do this precisely in your application, right? So if I play this now, I'm gonna, go click on home. I'm gonna enter new information, right? Expense type. Let us say it's food and beverage, T&E, description, lunch at KL, and the same date, right? And country is Malaysia, right? I'm gonna basically say the local amount was 100 ringgit, right? Tax was 10. Okay, and then I'm going to submit this information. So it's the second line, go back here, enter again, and then go to, let us say, hotel charges, right? Description is hotel accommodation in KL for this trip, right? And I'm going to select the same date here, right? Country is Malaysia, and I'm going to basically say 1,000 bucks, taxes 10 bucks, okay? And submit this information as well, right? So I've got this information here. What I'm going to now do is I'm going to insert some search boxes over here. So if I say drop down, and so a drop down kind of comes in here. So put this away like so, right? And then if you want to, you can basically change the border colors of this just to kind of make it look nice. So border color, you make it var Prudentia gray, like so, right? And in this, you basically go to the items, and then I'm going to add a list here of submitted, then approved, then rejected, and all the items, all the rest of the items, okay? So now, and I'm gonna make this semi-bold, and then if I were to go to the on-change property here, what I'm gonna basically say is if the, and I'm gonna call this drop down as DD status underscore SD, okay? And this icon here is the ICN back underscore SD, and this one is ICN home underscore SD, okay? So in this status here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if dd status dot selected dot value is equal to all, then set var db as 0. Okay, var db as 0. The reason why I'm doing this is if the item here is all show me all the items, then I will make the variable as var db as 0, and if var db is 0 in the database, I'll ask it to show me the entire database. Otherwise, you filter it. We'll come to that shortly, okay? So I have one of these here. I'm going to make this, let us say, 250 in width, like so. Okay, make this a little, pull it below a little, like that. And then if you want to, you have your chevron background, and this is blue, and this one you could also make it var prudentia blue, like so. You see, right? Make it pertinent and so on and so forth. And if you want to, you can make this whole border like a different border, right? Just to kind of make, what I mean is the fill property, instead of white, you could say, we can even check a var prudentia gold and see how that looks. Ooh, that is like way gold, right? And then if I go to the table here and I go to the fill of this table, I could basically remove this and then say color dot white. Let us see how that looks, okay? Not too bad, but then this is way too gold. So I could go to the dashboard and I can basically say color fade this prudentia gold and make it 50%, like so, okay? Yeah, that looks a little bit more elegant, and I could make it a little bit more, perhaps 65%, 75%. Yeah, that started looking pretty nice now, right? So I've got this here. Let me, so you could have submitted, you could have expense type if you want to, select by expense type. That is another one. If you want to select by amount, so on and so forth, you could have a number of different categories, right? Over here. Okay, as an example, the expense type is obvious. I'm gonna basically go add, like, let us say, a text input box here, right? I'm gonna put the text input box right next to it, make it as well, width of, let us say, 250, right? Make this a number. Okay, make this a number, and I'm going to basically say on change here, on change, you set the var db to be equal to 2, okay? And in this case, I'm going to go to the on change property and then say if it's all set var db as 0, otherwise set var db as 1, okay? So that's that, and I'm going to pull both of these to the right-hand side, like so, put this in the middle. Okay, put this as well right up there. And then, okay, and I'm going to insert a button here, and put the button right there. And make this as well 250. And I'm going to basically say clear selections. Okay, clear selections. So if I click this, it should basically make, I'm going to say set var db as 0. Okay, so that's that. And maybe I'll move this to the middle like so. okay? And then I'm going to add another button. So I'm going to go to the fill property of this, and I'm going to make this var prudential blue, okay? And then rename this button as btn clear underscore sd, and then this text input as ti acra underscore st, okay? We'll talk about this shortly. So if I say clear selections, it should go to the on select property and clear everything, okay? Set. I'm going to copy this button over. I'm going to copy this button over, Control C, Control V, and put this here like so. Maybe what I'll do is I'll move this one over to the right, put this here, put that there like so, and then clear selections on this side. And this one is going to be, and this one here is going to be edit item, okay? So now clear selections is going to clear everything. Submitted will filter this by the status of this submission. This one is going to be a free form text, and the hint here is going to be enter ACRA amount, right? Enter ACRA amount, and then I'm going to filter this based on the ACRA amount. You follow me? So I'm going to have to rename this button. I'm going to say SD, and this is going to be button BTN edit, and then this is going to be BTN, not BRN, BTN clear, okay? So, and in the ACRA amount on change, it is going to set it to 2. I think we are kind of sort of good to go. We'll worry about the edit item shortly, right? And in the data table, if you want to, you can go make the font semi-bold so it kind of stands out and looks pretty nice. I'm going to publish this before I do anything else, okay? And publish this version. All right. So I'm going to add some titles here as well on top. So I'm going to basically say insert text label. I'm going to bring a text label here, place that label down like so, make it semi-bold. I'm going to basically say select status, right? Select status over here, center it, go to the color of it, right? And make it var prudential blue. And then the height of it, I'm going to make it 35 like so. Bring it down like that. Okay, something like that. All right, so that is selecting the status, okay? The next one over here, I will basically say filter by ACRA amount, okay? Filter by ACRA amount, okay? And then here I can say filter by item status, right? Filter by item status. And then so it is very clear to the user as to what we're actually trying to do here, okay? Now, the edit item, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically set, first of all, I'm going to set var viz to be 1. And then I'm going to basically say edit form, and then the form is going to be form underscore se. And then I'm going to go navigate over to SCN data entry. You follow me? So when I do this, it goes over to the next, and then it basically sets the visibility to 1 so that the right entries are actually loaded in the form, okay? So now comes to, I'm going to basically rename these labels. I'm going to say LBL ACRA amount underscore SE, SD, and then this label is going to be LBL status underscore SD, okay? Super. So I've got all this now. So maybe it's time to, oh, let's go to the database. So this is where we go to the items property. And then what we're going to do here is we'll make it bigger. And then we go to switch. What are we switching? var db, right? var db, comma. If this is basically 0, if this is basically 0, then we are going to sort columns, this transaction table, and then we are going to basically sort this by what? We're going to sort it by the created column, and then we're going to say sort order descending. Okay, so that's that. We hit enter. If it is going to be 1, then we're going to say sort by columns. Then we're going to say transaction expense. We are going to basically then, we're going to first filter this. If it is 1, I'm going to use the filter command. I'm going to filter this transaction table. And whenever I filter a table, it becomes a smaller table, right? What am I going to filter it by? I'm going to filter it by the status. And then the status is equal to dd status dot selected dot whatever is the status over here, dd dot value, and that will give me a smaller table. And then I'm going to sort it again by created, and then sort order descending. Okay, so that's that. And if it's going to be 2, I'm going to do the same thing, right? If it's going to be 2, I'm going to do the same thing. So I might as well copy this whole thing. And then I'm going to here say that you sort by column, you filter this, not by status, but by ACRA amount, right? ACRA amount is greater than TI than value of whatever is in the text box for the text input. So text input ACRA.text, right? So what this is going to do essentially is if I put something in the text field, I'm going to make this smaller. So whatever I put in the text field, if that amount, filter this transaction table by the ACRA amount greater than whatever is in the text, okay? And then you sort it by the created field with, the descending order, okay? So I'm done with this. I'm going to close the bracket, so we are good to go. So let me explain this again. If the var db is 0, then you don't do any filtering. Show me all the items for the transaction expense sorted by the created column in the descending order. If it is 1, filter the transaction table with the status being equal to whatever is there in this drop down. Sort that by the created in the descending order. Now, if it is 2, you filter the transaction expense by ACRA amount, where the ACRA amount is greater than whatever I enter in the text box, and again sort it by the created column in the descending order, okay? So let us check this out. If I were to go clear selections here, it shows me everything, right? If I were to enter an ACRA amount of 150, it basically should sort it by anything that is greater than 150. So I'm going to basically clear this, and I'll say clear selection, and it goes back to normal. And here, if I select, approved, nothing is approved. If I go to all, it shows me all, so on and so forth, okay? Now, I'm actually ready to, let us say, edit this item, the third one, right? If I were to go to edit item here, this should go away, and it should, I don't know if I put the edit form here. Let me go back to the dashboard. Edit form underscore SE, and navigate over to screen. Let me go to the form here, and I'm going to make this edit, right? I'm going to make this edit. So that's what it is, okay? If I go to dashboard, and if I say edit, one more thing. I have now linked the data table to the database, and then I have linked the form to the database. But the form itself is not linked to this table, so I need to do that. So I'm going to go to the form here, and I'm going to basically go to the item property, and I'm going to basically say link this form to whatever is selected in the data table. Okay. So if I play this and this particular item, if I edit this, now that item is visible here in the form. So I can make any edits over here. So if I say, hey, look, this was not, local amount was not 500, it was actually a 1000. So I can make this edit, it picks it up, right? It's 1000. And then I basically go ahead and I actually resubmit this. It goes down and then my amount is 1000. You follow me? So I'm basically done with my application. The only other things I need is I'm going to go to this home icon, Control C, and I'm going to actually put this in the data entry screen as well, like so. Rename this as SE. Okay. And then if I want to go back to my dashboard, so I'm going to go paste this, but then I'm going to change the icon here. I'm going to go to a dashboard icon. Trend maybe. Yeah. So I'm going to call this a dashboard 0 here, and then call this dashboard. Okay. And then this would navigate me back over to the dashboard like so. Okay. So essentially I can navigate over, this is the dashboard. I click on home. And then here, if I were to say view dashboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically say refresh the dashboard, which is transaction expense. And then I'm going to basically say navigate over to SEN dashboard. Okay, so that is that. Here, I'm basically navigating over to screen data entry, right? So everything looks good. View dashboard, here is my dashboard. I can enter anything here. So essentially at this point, I'm actually done with my application. Okay. There are other videos on other finer things that you could do within the application, such as digital signatures. If you want, you can add barcode scanning, many other features within the videos on other videos on YouTube. And kindly feel free to look over that. There is also one video exclusively on Power Automate as to how you could do approvals using this, so on and so forth. Okay. I trust this is actually helpful. Thank you very much.